And so, of course, I started, getting anxiety about it. I went to get checked by my GP. So I did all the tests and doctors possible. I had 2 head scans to see if I don't have multiple sclerosis, if I don't have a brain tumor. I had at least 3 visits to a cardiologist, numerous blood tests, an extensive ear test that took like an hour with all the different, ways to test if it's not related to my inner ear. Then the doctor was writing it down to psychosomatic.
Vilma, how did you find Carnivore?
It's been a long journey. Like I mentioned, when we communicated, it's been just over 30 days now, about 32 days this week. And I'm quite amazed with the results. The story began, low carb and all this, in 2020. In August, I started feeling very, very tired. My hair started falling out. I was sleepy all the time. I really didn't have much energy to do anything other than go to work. I went to see my GP. All blood tests came out normal. Well, ferritin was a bit low. And for some reason, I decided to just get it into Mediterranean diet, but like full on. Now, I've never been into fast food or like very much processed foods. So it's not like I moved from eating crisps to, veg. I was more or less healthy all the time. I've never been a skinny girl, but I've maintained my weight pretty much, normal size. And so, I started going heavy on Mediterranean vegetables, avocado, any greens that come. I live in the south of France here in Montpellier for the last 15 years. And I sort of talked myself into that idea that if I eat more fruit, if I eat more veg, I'm just going to get my energy back, all's going to be fine. So I was forcing myself to eat loads of fruit every day, veg, leafy greens. I was eating like an avocado a day, loads of nuts, almonds, pecans, and all that stuff. And within 3 weeks, I started developing massive dizziness, like vertigo dizziness. It was like I was walking on the boat all the time. When you walk on the pavement, I was starting to avoid narrower pavements because I thought I was not going to be stable, and I started getting anxious about the way people that coming towards me see me, that I'm wobbling. And so, of course, I started, getting anxiety about it. I went to get checked by my GP. So I did all the tests and doctors possible. I had 2 head scans to see if I don't have multiple sclerosis, if I don't have a brain tumor. I had at least 3 visits to a cardiologist, numerous blood tests, an extensive ear test that took like an hour with all the different, ways to test if it's not related to my inner ear. Then the doctor was writing it down to psychosomatic. It was just crazy how easily they prescribe you like antidepressants, or they offer you or anti-anxiety medication like Xanax and stuff like that. And each time they would prescribe me something, I'd come back home, I would jump on Google, look up the side effects, and no, I'm not taking that. So I was suffering with that massive dizziness. I was getting extremely tired on top of the fact that I was already low on energy. And then I started having those very regular panic attacks. And I was continuing all this time the Mediterranean diet, so-called, that I'm going to say doesn't even exist. People in the Mediterranean don't eat like that. It's just something that comes, it's like so romanticized People eat veg, granted, better than the standard American diet, I would say. Olive oil, nuts, and such, but they can't live here without their baguette, without their croissant, pain au chocolat. It's just France, well, the south of France is a carb country, full stop. So I don't know where we need to go looking for the Mediterranean diet, you know. So anyway, I started having panic attacks. At the same time, I developed rash on my arms, on my chest, that looked like sort of allergic rash that would come and go. And then I started digging deep on that. It seemed like it was some sort of histamine intolerance that also caused my panic attacks. Because when you have this histamine overload, that's how they explain it. I mean, I'm not, you know, this is what I figured out. It's sort of, it affects your air pathways, that you have the impression that you have less capacity to breathe, so it freaks you out. And it causes a panic attack because you feel that there's something going on, that you have some heavy breathing. At the same time, you have this rash. It looked like hives. It didn't itch. It was nothing else. And of course, I started another round of going to see the doctors. They tested my liver enzymes. That was fine. Blood work again. That was fine. Of course, they were giving me antihistamines. I took it maybe once, and it was just not my thing. But this all to say that I was living like that for more or less 2.5 years, 3 years, with highs and lows, and, you know, but honestly, constantly having this massive dizziness, enormous brain fog. I would just, sometime I would be in work in the office, especially in the afternoon. I would have to hold my head with my hand like that and look at the screen to just, you know, to show that I'm working. But I would have to, like, I would have to just have a moment of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, because I was having such a bad brain fog and so much tiredness, I wouldn't be able to focus on work. So of course, to help me go through that, I was hooked on caffeine. I started snacking on sugary things, even though I thought, you know, Mediterranean diet, but, you know, let's eat more nuts. At least it's healthy. Let's have a banana. It's sugar. It's going to give me energy. And so I wouldn't stop because nothing was helping me. All tests came out normal. This can't be. I know I'm not crazy. Well, in the sense that I would need to take, you know, anything a little bit further in terms of my mental health. I had the natural curiosity to find the reason myself. So little by little, I started discovering through those, you know, health influencers, you know, different chats where they invite doctors on their shows. And, you know, the idea that carbs, any type of carbs, essentially is not something that we should be focusing on, and that there's nothing wrong with consuming more fat and you know, diet higher in fat. So I started eliminating fruit first, because I was a fruit junkie. I was convinced it was just, I'm going to live forever. One day is just going to go back to normal. Bananas, pomegranate, that was a superfood. Pomegranate, I would eat 2 a day. It was just, yeah. So I started eliminating fruit first. And then, of course, at the same time doing my research, I started digging more into Ken Berry's videos, of course, Dr. Ovadia. I was interested in the way he sees, you know, insulin resistance and explains low carb diet and all this. And yeah, I knew that I wanted to do this carnivore diet earlier, but living here is so hard. Like my French friends and their baguette and their snacks and their brochette and it's so hard. It is so antisocial, you know. So I in February, I said, listen, I'm gonna do it. Better days are coming. I'm gonna have more time to focus on my health and stuff. And I started like 32 days ago. And since day 2 or 3, I stopped having any hives. Not a single panic attack. My sleep is like, I only ever wake up now with alarm clock, or if somebody calls me by mistake or something like that. Because before I used to be a light sleeper. Well, I would get up at 3 to go to the bathroom. Now I only wake up because of the alarm clock, because I really need to go to the bathroom. But I mean, I sleep through like 7, 8 hours without waking up. The energy is just crazy. Like doing sports, I decided to change my jobs. I have energy, to look for other opportunities. I wasn't happy in my other job anyway. Within 4 weeks, I lost probably, 2.5 kilos. So that's like 5 pounds, I suppose, more or less. But my clothes look different. It's like I didn't even lose that much weight, but I feel different. Like my waist is really tiny now. Jeans look different. Everything is like, I haven't even lost that much weight, but I feel like I did lose more than, those 5 pounds. So, and well, it's not hard to follow this carnivore diet, not for me, because I live on my own. I don't need to look after kids. I don't need to cater for other people or cook for them and stuff. But I know that as soon as I meet up with my friends, it's hard to, so I am going to see my friends tonight, a French family, and I am just going to have to, take it on me. And I might allow myself some keto war option. But yeah.
So is this the first time you're kind of going out in a social setting in the last 32 days?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I met people like for a coffee and things like that, but like now spending the night over a dinner and all this, I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But the sad part of all this is like I keep talking to my friends, to my family about how it makes me feel, this carnivore diet, how much better I'm feeling now. Like the hives are gone, because my family saw me, like you would wake up in the morning and you're covered with hives and you started developing breathing issues, which I'm now putting down to oxalate overload. Whatever it is called, histamine intolerance, but considering that I was consuming huge amount of veg and fruit, it really kind of, you put 2 and 2 together and, start making sense. Why else would, my hives and panic attacks disappear once I stop eating those foods, And then, of course, I've looked up other videos where they are talking about oxalates, about anti-nutrients. Actually, yes, 2 weeks ago, I went to donate plasma here in Montpellier, because I have a rare blood group. They keep calling me for donation because it's sought after. So they did all the comprehensive tests because it was the first time I was doing that. Perfect. And the joke all about this is like they send you an email the night before, and they tell you not to eat anything fat, not to eat too much meat, no fatty foods or anything like that, because it can affect your plasma quality. It was perfect. The doctor saw it. It was nice, transparent, yellow, liquidy thing that was just, and all the hemoglobin, ferritin, or whatever, any other parameters were perfect. Considering that for 2 weeks prior to that, I was eating steak, I was eating loads of bacon and eggs, cheese. I'm still thinking maybe to take a break from cheese. I don't know. But I love goat cheese and things like that. And you know what? They keep saying don't eat anything fatty before you donate plasma. I don't know why they're saying this.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's awesome in 32 days. I mean, it's not even 32 days, right? Because you were feeling
Yeah,
better after day 3, right?
exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
rang my mom and I said, I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I have such a rush of energy suddenly, like to do anything. And before, I would get up in the morning, I would have a coffee, I would have another coffee, I would get out of bed. It would be just like another day to get through. And, in between would have those episodes of anxiety, and panic attacks. And I don't recognize myself. And it is very sad. Well, sad. I know I can't really put it in other people's head. They can say, there's a saying that you can take the horse to the river, but you can't make him drink. So people see me, they see that I'm doing better, they see that I'm much more positive now. And I tell them about what I've discovered and what really helped me. And they're like, well, that's great, but it's very hard. Yeah. I have a friend who's sort of been struggling with weight for the last 5 years, and she's tried loads of different diets and doing the yo-yo and all this, but she said to me, listen, I really see how it's helping you. I would like to do the same, but I can't do without bread. I simply can't. And I think why it's easier for me, it's also because I am Lithuanian. And our diet there, or at least back in the day when I was a little girl, was a bit more like German, so savory breakfast. So ham, eggs, some cheese, okay, bread, but mostly, that very dark, as you call it, German bread. So it was hardly ever sweet breakfast. Maybe on a weekend, some pancakes with jam or something, but it was really exceptional. So I think that's why, to me, it was easier to transition to that. Another
Yeah.
thing, another thing that I discovered is because I come from the northern country, a lot of the plants and things that people eat here are not natural to my body. Like avocado doesn't grow naturally there, like almonds and all those things. And I was pushing my body to consume that, thinking that, all those superfoods, it's one size fits all idea. Surely it has to help me as well. Where now there are more and more theories that if you grew up within a certain natural environment and eating only certain veg naturally available in where you were born, it kind of makes sense that your body might tend to resist it, or to manifest different kinds of symptoms that are not that necessarily beneficial to your health overall.
It's scary thinking about the almonds as well, like I did that too. I used to do bags of almonds thinking like I can't find any good food around where I'm working today, but I can just get these bags of almonds and they're good for me, right? But
Yeah.
it just wrecks your body. It's awful.
Or it's like banana and or anything, I'll have a kiwi, surely loaded with vitamin C, has to have, if I eat that instead of my dessert. And if I up it to 2 kiwis per day, just, to make sure I have that dose of vitamin C. And then you read later on that, well, it's very high in oxalates and all that. And it has to be something that, you know, you need to get to by yourself. I mean, it's very sad to see that people take those measures only when something really serious happened to them. And I consider myself lucky because my curiosity won against the doctors here in France, because they were, without any deep understanding, they were very easily prescribing me all kinds of medication. And, I am grateful that I had this, at least that mental power when I was really struggling to go and look for more information, and the side effects that the medication might cause. And, I'm grateful that I didn't get hooked on, I don't know, like anti-anxiety or antidepressant medication.
Yeah. So one thing that we didn't talk about was your vertigo. How is that now? Is that gone?
Is that gone?
Yeah.
So nobody will tell me, no doctor will ever tell me exactly what it was. But because I was getting hives at the same time, the rash, and I was feeling an effect of my breathing on my air pathways, surely it was affecting also anything, that affects the balance. And of course, oxalate overload, if it's exactly what it was, it does give you that brain fog and it does affect your brain eventually. No vertigo whatsoever. Whatsoever. It's, and it was a vicious circle because a lot of people on YouTube too, they talk about vertigo as something psychosomatic. That you have anxiety, at a certain stage you have this change in hormones and all that. But it's the other way around. It wasn't the anxiety the cause of vertigo. It was my diet. It was the vertigo that caused the anxiety because I didn't know what was happening with me. And you go, of course, if you search Dr. Google, which nobody should do, but you do it because you can't help it. You can't help it. You can't just sit there and not think, what's wrong with me. And of course, you type vertigo, and then they give you the worst possible scenario, tumors, multiple sclerosis, brain something else. And, like you can just, get lost yourself in that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you're looking up. The first few results are always going to be something like, I've got a headache. Oh, tumor, multiple sclerosis. It could be anything, right? But it's
Yeah.
always, yeah, worst possible scenario to best
And
because that's what's going to get the
yes.
click.
And the
Yeah.
problem with that is that when you are already struggling physically and mentally, this kind of information gives you even more anxiety. So it becomes a vicious circle because you start to overthink that this is exactly what I'm having. Then you started panicking even more. In my case, I was accelerating that healthy food diet, so to say, Mediterranean diet. To this day, I don't really know what it means. It seems to me that Mediterranean diet is something that is presented by, well, now the big pharma is starting to embrace it, but by the nutritional coaches and, saying that Mediterranean, if you're in America and it's so far away and you see France as this little, what the Mediterranean Sea as this like some sort of half paradise where everybody's happy, the sun is shining, and people eat only healthy food. But when you dig deeper, you actually find out that France is, I think, the second country in Europe in terms of McDonald's consumption. Yeah. And I would have colleagues in work where they bring to eat, for their lunchbox for lunch, sometimes salad, sometimes something cooked at home. But absolutely every single one of them would have a can of Coke with. So, you can eat your avocado and almonds and fish and well, they don't really like the wholemeal bread. It has to be baguette. But on the other hand, there's Coke. And so, yeah, I think it makes me laugh now that people say, I am doing Mediterranean diet. It doesn't, Mediterraneans don't eat like that. And I'm not talking again about the blue zones, because the blue zones, it's another marketing thing. And when you go to Spain, which is like 3 hours for me from here, mostly fried food. Their tapas is 90% fried. Paella, I love paella, it's delicious, but let's not say it's Mediterranean diet. If you have a drizzle of olive oil per day, it doesn't mean you're Mediterranean. Like I said, it doesn't. Me, Mediterranean diet made me sick.
Mm. Yeah. Um, so you mentioned that the south of France is carb country.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
how is it for you as a carnivore 32 days in, if you wanted to go out and get a steak or something like that? Is that kind of strange or?
I did that. People would look at me and, or the waiter asked me if I didn't like the fries because I left them on the side. I mean, eating socially with other people is a bit awkward. Unless beforehand you explain to me that, look, I'm not eating this, I'm trying out this thing, it's helping me in terms of my health. But other than that, if you don't have a choice, for example, you're working in an office in the middle of nowhere, you don't have your lunch with you, you need to get out to buy something, there are loads of boulangerie everywhere. You don't have much choice. It's mostly sandwiches or anything to do with carbs. Okay, you can get salad, but they have to give you half a baguette with that salad, where you don't have to eat that. They like those croutons in their salad. If people in the US or anywhere else are complaining that eating carnivore is antisocial, it's very much so in France, even more. And like if I say to my friends, let's have an egg or some ham for breakfast, they are not happy. They have a craving. It's like nobody has nut allergy in France because all kids grew up on brioche and Nutella. So there has to be jam, there has to be this. It's unimaginable. Like you can't imagine that they would accept to just go full no carb, you know.
It's interesting because it's a little bit like the same kind of thing with the Mediterranean diet. It's kind of a romanticized idea about the way French people eat, or the Mediterranean diet and the blue zones and things like that, right?
Yeah, and people, because those people here, the Mediterranean, so to say, they are getting so proud of this, the marketing bit. Oh, well, we live in the Mediterranean, so we're gonna live forever because we're eating this and that and that. But guys, you're not even eating this. They can't imagine a meal without a dessert. There has to be bread everywhere. And I mean, yeah, they take avocado, they eat a bit, they take some aubergine or eggplant. Yeah, they do eat more veg than the standard American person, I can imagine. But we can't label this as something universal for everyone in terms of health benefits. Because, during my 15 years here, and especially when my friends that live outside France, they tell me, you're so lucky, you get to eat healthy all the time, you have all this choice. And well, if you don't make the choice for yourself, it's just not going to happen, regardless of where you live.
Oh, yeah. So, what are you eating on a day-to-day basis now, and how often are you eating?
So I skip breakfast because I try to do some intermittent fasting in the meantime. And I realized I'm not even that hungry in the morning anyway. So I have black coffee without anything. Well, sometimes a pinch of salt, I realized it somehow helps me. Well, maybe a bit low on minerals. If I am, then, maybe it's psychological, but I like a pinch of salt in my coffee. So, and then at midday, it's mostly eggs with bacon and a side of goat's cheese, but like fresh goat's cheese. In the evening, it alternates in between a steak, burger steak, uh, a fillet of salmon sometimes. Last night I had a fillet of trout, which was very nice. I am lucky because I like liver. So I go to a local butcher's here. He orders for me actually chicken liver, beef liver, veal liver, and it's nice. I just fry it up on butter with a little bit of pepper. It's really good. I saw some organic sausages as well. So I like that with eggs. I love eggs. I love eggs. And I was convinced at some stage that when I was eating the Mediterranean diet that I was getting my hives from eggs, except that now I'm eating 3 times as many eggs per day than I used to, and no more hives or anything like that. So that's what I eat pretty much. Shrimps, yeah, shrimps with, okay, so I do cheat when I do shrimps. I fry them slightly on butter, and I have this garlic powder, but it's like garlic powder. I just drizzle a little bit. It's really nice.
Nice. A lot of people have that feeling like I can't eat liver, you know, but I don't really have had some at a barbecue restaurant here and it was okay. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you try different animal liver, and you know some of it, like veal liver, is really good. It doesn't have a very pronounced taste. Chicken liver is a bit different, but I try to eat that at least once a week. At least from the information that we're getting is very beneficial in terms of nutrients. To me, the biggest thing though, when I started carnivore diet, I didn't so much miss the sweet taste, but I missed the savory, the acidic kind of taste. I was having cravings like for an orange or apple, or, you know, something very acidic. So I find that liver does have a little bit of that acidic taste, which is very nice.
You mentioned tonight is the first time that you're going to go out and like have a dinner. You're going to stay at your friend's place and have dinner there and stuff. How do they already know, or how do you think they'll react if they don't know?
They don't. They don't know that yet. But those people are meat eaters. So usually at dinner, there's always, well, there's a barbecue or there's meat or steak or anything. I'm sure I'll be fine. And they always like to have cheese before the dessert. So I'm looking forward to that. And they have like very nice selection of cheeses every time that they buy at a local cheese place. And yeah, I'm just gonna go in. I say, listen, I've started this. I'm sure they're gonna notice some difference because I was also, people were writing me down as a beginning hypochondriac because when I started developing my dizziness and hives and panic attacks, I quite naturally started talking a lot about my health because I was worried and I didn't know what was happening with me. So I had some comments from my friends that, look, we are worried, but you seem to be talking about this all the time. So I think another thing that people are noticing now that I'm not so obsessed about all this anymore because I am feeling so much better.
That's great. So, for you, is this is it from now on? You're going to stick to a carnivore approach to eating going forward?
I would like that to be so. I think with the summer coming, I will inevitably fall off the wagon once or twice. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that I work in the wine trade. I work for a company that exports wine. So because I am working from home, it is easy to resist. But any sort of work events or social events asks you to do tastings. It's been a part of my life for quite a long time now. So I'm looking into changing jobs, not because of this, because of, doing something else. But I think it's going to be, good for me in terms of resisting the urge, because I like a glass of wine. So I think that with the summer coming, there will have to be a night or two where I'm just going to enjoy a glass or two. But you know
Well,
what? I reckon I am convinced that even if you manage to do like 100% carnivore 4, 5, 6 days a week, that it's still so much better than not doing it at all.
yeah, I would agree with that, because when I've done low carb and keto in the past, I've been able to stick to it for the, 99% of the time, but then I would have a day off where there was a bit of a binge. And you would, as long as you kind of go back to the way of it, that way of eating, then, you stay pretty much okay. The trouble with low carb and keto is there's just so many temptations in your regular day to day with the keto snacks and so forth that it's easy to continually fall off the wagon and then just, go down the drain, and end up
But
back on the diet, the regular way of eating.
and I think lifestyle is a big factor. I live alone, I don't have kids. I don't know how well I would be able to deal with carnivore if I had a family, everyday kids and people to cook for and look after their nutrition. I don't know how well I would be doing on carnivore, to be honest with you. I think it's easy for people like me to stick to it because you have less than temptation and you're not responsible for anybody else.
Yeah. I have found, though, having kids myself, I have found that one of the things that kids really like about daddy being on carnivore is that they don't have to share their candy with me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. But how easy for you now though to buy that candy for your kids?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always kind of, yeah, I don't want to do it, but I also, if she's with friends or something and there's peer pressure and stuff like that, I don't want to withhold from her and make her different from her friends. So, but she's, she's getting really good. We'll go out for dinner. We'll go to a place that has steaks, and I'll have a steak, and she'll be like, because she's been watching me just eat steak all the time, she'll be like, I want one of those as well. And she'll eat the steak first. And because she eats the steak first, she's full. So she doesn't want to eat, the rice and the condiments that come with it. So that's pretty good.
That's
That's a bit
pretty
of a
good.
win. Yeah.
Yeah, that, of course it is a win. Yeah. Well, I mean, at
Yeah.
least if they start to develop those habits early on in their life, that's going to be something like, to me, my breakfast needs to be savory if I ever eat it. Even though I've been living outside Lithuania for such a long time now.
So do you miss Lithuania?
I miss it, of course, and I do go there on a regular basis. And well, my mom makes me breakfast to bed, and it's usually eggs with loads of bacon. So I'm going to Lithuania now in 2 weeks, and I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to, because people from the north, well, we do tend to eat more meat because the veg, we used to only get access to the seasonal kind of veg and fruit when I was a little girl, because remember in winter it might go down to -25 sometimes Celsius. It doesn't stay like that for a long time, but that would of course mean that for 3 months you don't have any freshly grown stuff or anything like that. So and when I was 12, Lithuania got the independence back from the Soviet Union. So I was born in the Soviet Union. So we didn't have this option of imported exotic fruits. Frozen food stores didn't exist. So everything was homemade. And we would keep some, for example, some some apples or some carrots, potatoes during the winter. But other than that, it was meat mostly, eggs, some fish, and yeah, the good stuff.
So it's really interesting, right? Because most people would see that as, wow, that sounds like such a hard time. But actually, despite, the perception of that being hard times, you were eating better than most people are eating these days, right?
I take that, into consideration more and more often because, of course, we were closed off from the rest of the world, but we were not unhappy. Okay, so food choices were limited. But like I said, pizza, for the first time, I tried, well, I don't know, I was 12, 13. McDonald's never really took off that much in Lithuania either. Surely the current generation eating more fast food, But the way we grew up, I think, helped us to build a certain level of the immune system that I can see the difference if I compare myself to the people here. Like how many people are having allergies here? Like I never saw that back in the day in Lithuania.
It's a good point. Like, growing up, you didn't see as many kids with allergies and stuff like that. We always talk about how as we were growing up, there wasn't there was like the one fat kid in school or in the grade level, there
Exactly.
wasn't, everyone wasn't fat, right? But it was also, there was much less allergies around, right?
Yeah, and they have this funny thing in France. It's called goûter. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon when kids come back from school, so they can last until the dinner. And if they're hungry, we give them something to eat. And universally, it's something sweet. Biscuits, some cake, pain au chocolat, or something sweet. And it's just something for them, like they don't even think about it. It's 4 o'clock, is the time of goûter. It's something that the adults do as well. If you're in work or something like that, you're in the office, a colleague will come with a pack of whatever, sweets, madeleines, whatever other thing. Oh, I say, it's time for goûter. Let's, we have like another 4 hours until the dinner. Let's all have something sweet. Yeah. It is. Working from home is another thing, actually. When you are in the office, like 3, 4, 5 times in the morning, some colleagues or the boss would come with a bag of pastry. So you can tell yourself, well, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to eat that. But when you're a bit tired, you need some caffeine, you go to the coffee machine and you see this whole big basket of all that wonderful looking pastry. And it's very, very hard to resist.
That's right. You're waiting for the coffee to fill up or the coffee to brew, and you're just looking at it and you're like, oh, that, yeah.
And it's in the morning, it's freshly baked pastry, so there's a smell and everything. And yeah, it is hard to do this. And I realized, well, surely France is not the fattest nation in Europe by far or in the world. Well, but because they tend to diet a lot. Women here, when they say the French women are skinny and slim and all this elegant, that's usually the women within 2 kilometers per, area in Paris. In the South is not like that. In other parts of the country is not like that. All this kind of the French elegance and body image and all this, it's mostly down to Parisians. If people travel further south, they see a different story. And to the French, well, to a standard French lady, if she's thinking of losing some weight, getting back into shape, the first thing that comes to mind is to cut down on calories while maintaining the energy levels by snacking on sugary things. Yeah.
Yeah. not a not a good approach. Yeah. Um,
And there are diet departments in stores are thriving, like low fat biscuits, low fat this. They have like the whole bunch of shelves just with that kind of food, you
mm.
know.
And they've got like the companies that are producing this stuff have got it stitched up, right? Because they know that it's not going to work. They're selling it to people desperate for a solution, and these people that are desperate for a solution will just always blame themselves for the fact it's not working and just keep going back and buying the stuff over and over again. So it's just this cycle of no results and money being spent, right?
Yeah, and I have friends who say they do their shopping on Saturday, Sundays, and they buy those big boxes of biscuits that say low fat or low sugar or low something. And they tell me, listen, I decided to snack healthy because in work a lot of people snack. It's the reality. Like I was snacking on almonds. So they buy those boxes of those sweet things, and just because it says, 50% less fat or 50% less sugar or something like that, well, they feel better about themselves because they think that, they're doing something good for their health.
If you were giving a friend advice about how to get started on carnivore, what advice would you give them? What would you tell them so that they could kind of stick with it?
Well, the very first thing I always say is get rid of processed foods. If you can only start doing that, this is a huge step. Having in mind that a lot of processed foods have a lot of hidden sugars and any other really bad stuff for our health. Then I also say go a bit lower on fruit because fruit here is very important. And a lot of people think, I do sports, I go to the gym, bananas are really good, all that kind of thing. And I also, this is what I've been saying for the last few months anyway to people. Try to eat foods that do not have more than 3 ingredients. If you have a meal, 3, 4 ingredients. If you have meat, egg, cheese. If it has more than 4, 5 ingredients, then you need to question that. Okay, if you're cooking something special, it's fine. But the fewer ingredients there are, the more natural the food seems to be. So that's, and I think people shouldn't really go into it straight on. I think you need to do it by step. Eliminate processed foods, then eliminate fruit. Have your veggies, meat, eggs, and so on, and then it will come natural. I think for most people, especially here, the biggest challenge is sugar craving, like everywhere else, I suppose.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time, Vilma.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.